All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Batting 1,000, where we bring in the big hitters in the heavy hitters in the mortgage industry. And today is going to be a great show. I'm super excited to have Mike Simonsen with us today. He's the founder of Altos Research. They were founded in 2006. They bring data, they bring insight on the U.S. housing market to those who need it. That's really what their goal is. We're going to talk a lot about the market today. We're going to talk about things like the NAR settlement, what's happening with that, and what's happening with values and inventory. Mike is absolutely a whiz at these things. They provide both national and local real estate data to financial institutions, real estate professionals, and also to investors across the country. In 2022, the company was acquired by HousingWire Media, our good friends over there, Clayton Collins and the team, and Diego, who's going to be actually on our next show as a guest. We're looking forward to having Diego on. And Mike uses Altos data to identify trends in the real estate market well before the headline. So you're going to get sneak peek previews on what's happening out there. Big credentials. His work's been featured in New York Times, the Atlantic Fortune, Bloomberg, and other publications. Really well-known guy. Great guy. Mike, great to have you with us. Thanks for joining us today.
Great to be here, man.
Well, let's start with, I want you to share the story that I understand you shared about how you started Altos, and you had a conversation with some big hitters, Lehman Brothers and Goldman Sachs. Share a little bit about that and a little bit about your journey of getting into today's market, a little bit more about what you do from your perspective, and a little bit about your partnership with HousingWire.
Yeah, so this is the story of the time that I saved Goldman Sachs from bankruptcy. And so, I started this company in January of 2006. And at the time, we had this observation, we were tracking I was just doing it personal, tracking the housing market for my needs in Silicon Valley. I've done data software forever, but I started realizing that I had real insights that at the time nobody else had. You couldn't just go get market data.
Yeah.
There was these homes sold 2 months ago is about what you could get.
Yeah.
And so we had more insight than anybody had about the housing market. And I was doing it personally. I had those realizations. So I said, let's go commercialize this and build a company. One of the very first conferences I went to, I'm in the audience, and on stage there were guys that were from Goldman and Lehman and a couple other places that they were the ones that were trading the mortgage derivatives at the time. So in 2006, these guys were like masters of the universe, big money, and they were, this was a massive trade. So I'm thinking these guys need my data. I snuck backstage into the speaker lounge.
Love it.
And I go to the guy from Lehman Brothers. I said, yeah, my name is Mike Simonsen. My company's Altos Research. We track the housing market. We track every home for sale every week. We track all the supply and demand. We check the prices, the changes in that data. And then we pump it out every Monday so that you know it way before the traditional data. And I can tell you exactly what's happening in the market. And the guy from Lehman Brothers looked at me and goes, Mike, I don't need your data. I have so much data you couldn't possibly imagine. I've got so much. I was like, okay, well, this guy's not my customer, right? But I'm brand new entrepreneur. I'm like, I go and I find the Goldman guy and I go, my name is Mike Simonsen. My company's Altos Research. We track the active housing market. We track every home for sale in the country every week. We track all the pricing, all the supply and demand, all the changes in that data so that you can see the signals way before the traditional data. And the guy from Goldman says, oh, that's interesting. Let me see a sample. If I like it, I'll buy it. And so 12 weeks later, Goldman Sachs is my first enterprise data license customer. And 12 months later, Lehman Brothers ceases to exist. They almost brought down the entire global financial system.
Yeah, they sure did.
Right? And the reason was the difference between those two firms was that Goldman got short 1 quarter before the rest of the street.
Mm-hmm.
Goldman said, wow, this market is turning. We're going to short these derivatives while Lehman Brothers was still long and super leveraged. And the lesson there is, of course, Mike's data saves the world, but also the lesson is that we have data. There's all kinds of data, but you really have to have a certain humility to let the data tell you what's going on. We all have our take on where the market is heading and what we expect it to head and what we want it to do. Um, but we have to watch the data and see if it's telling us something that is like falsifying our hypothesis every day. And the guys at Goldman were savvy enough to let the data do that. And so I joked that I said me and Warren Buffett we saved Goldman Sachs, but in reality it was that attitude that those folks had to look for data in Altos. They were happy to see it from us. They were happy to look for it in other partners. I spoke with yesterday at a conference the guy who was the CEO of Ameriprise at the time, and who was in the subprime space, and he said he was talking to Goldman in at that moment too, and letting them know what was going on. And so it was really, but so that's that. But that the lesson there is like we have a bunch of data,
Yep.
and the world has data, and 18 years later we have more data.
Yep.
And the question is, how can you be humble enough to let the data tell us what it wants to tell us?
Yep.
So I work hard at doing that, and I look at the data every day, and I publish on the data every week, and I write about it, and I do video on it, and so my job is to say, okay, I expect this to happen. Is it happening? Is it going to happen? Is it changing? And it's also what I teach our customers. So our customers are, we have tens of thousands of agents and loan officers and executives in the space who need to communicate about the housing
Yep.
market. And so not only do I do that for myself, but I also try to teach our customers to do that,
Awesome.
to be the Goldman, not the Lehman.
Yeah, well, I'm honored to have the guy who saved Goldman Sachs on here, and we turned Warren away because we wanted you. So
That's right.
it's good to have you. So, all right, let's open this thing up. Let's talk about those trends. So everybody talks about inventory. Everybody's talking about what's going to happen with listing prices and all of that. The overarching thing that I know you probably see this. I certainly see it as a consultant and a trainer who works with CEOs and companies all over the country in the mortgage space. I think there's a lot of negative mindset about those things. And I'm on the other side of that. I believe there's so many good things happening. Inventory is growing. We're seeing that improve. Listing prices are starting to reduce, which is helping affordability. We have massive demand with population numbers for the next 25 years for home ownership. I'm very bullish on what I think the purchase market's going to do for the next several years. But you've got the data. So talk to us about let's talk about what you see the trends in real estate being right now and where they're going in the next year or 2 years or 3 years, whatever you're comfortable with in forecasting.
Yeah, for sure. So the biggest trend this year in the U.S. housing market is that available inventory of unsold homes
Mm-hmm.
is higher than it was last year. So it is 39. There are 39% more homes on the market now than last year at this time.
Wow.
So that's a lot.
Yep.
On the other hand, if you zoom out a bigger stretch, so there are 668,000 single family homes unsold on the market in the U.S. right now.
Okay.
And that's 39% more than last year. But if you go back to 2019, there were like 850,000
Right.
single family homes. If you go back to 2015, there was 1.25 million single family homes unsold on the market.
Yep.
So while inventory is up, it's not up a lot nationally.
Yeah.
And that has implications. So it has implications in a few ways. And as inventory grows year over year, that implies that there is like it is enough inventory buildup over the year that implies weakness in home prices in the future, but not there's nothing in the data that implies a crash of home prices in the future. And we could talk a little bit more about that when we talk about pricing in particular. But think about inventory. There are a few markets where inventory is up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So Western Florida, Austin, Texas, a few of those places. There are 5 states now that have more inventory. So every state in the country now has more unsold inventory than last year at this time.
Good.
Some of them, like Florida and Arizona, are like 60 or almost 70% more
Wow.
homes unsold.
Okay.
Some places like New York is like 6% more.
Okay.
But every state has more unsold inventory than a year ago.
Good.
There are 5 states that have more inventory than 2019.
Okay.
So that's Florida, Texas,
Okay.
Idaho, and then also Oklahoma and Arkansas.
Okay. So news flash for lenders. There's good markets right there. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Those are markets that have better availability for buyers.
Yep.
There's more opportunity. Like there are some places in the country, like upstate New York or Boston, where supply is still constrained, and the supply constraint is actually keeping a lid on the transaction volume.
Right.
There's not enough homes to buy,
Right.
which was actually a big story from last year. That like even when there was demand there weren't enough homes to sell.
Right.
So now inventory is up, and so that's starting to loosen up in some areas. And so those 5 states are there's like more than 2019. If you look at, for example, Austin, Texas. Austin's had 15 years of a strong housing market.
Yeah, they've been growing.
And so if your experience is only the last 3 years in Austin, it looks like catastrophe right now, but it's actually not that unusual. So there's some of those signals that we can see in inventory. So what we're looking at for the rest of the year for inventory is we are so inventory is up 39% year over year. In the second half of last year, mortgage rates rose.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They rose all the way to 8% by October.
Mm-hmm.
And when rates rise, inventory rises.
Okay.
So it is, demand slows, inventory grows,
Right.
is the way to think about that. And the other side, though, is when rates fall, available inventory falls. So falling rates spur demand more than supply. So we buy more, that the unsold inventory falls. It's a really clear connection. So if we look at the second half of this year, if we are lucky and we're now finally past the peak in mortgage rates, then we could see inventory decline, because we will see a pickup in demand. And that year over year growth in inventory from 39% will compress down closer to 20% by the end of the year.
Okay.
So, we end the year with maybe 620,000 single family homes over the holidays. That'd be like a 20% growth over the previous year. So each year with higher rates, we get slightly more inventory buildup. And one of the questions I get from folks in the industry is when do we get back to normal levels of inventory?
Which is what, 1.1 million approximately? Is that?
Yeah, like 1 million homes on the market in the middle of summer. And the answer that I see is that if we have multiple years at higher rates, 6s, bounces to 7, multiple years at higher rates, get that inventory to build up back to the old normal levels. And then when inventory is at high, now you have fewer bidding wars, you have easier time for buyers, you have opportunity to you have flatter price levels, and your income grows, and so you get affordability. When you have more of those homes on the market, you get back to an affordability state over multiple years. And it's fascinating because it takes higher rates to get us to more affordable times. If rates spike, though, and I would say like I've been wrong on estimating, my forecast of mortgage rates. I've been wrong for 30 years. I have no idea what mortgage rates are going to do. Right? They could go up,
Nobody
and if
really
they
does.
go up, yeah, I'm not convinced anybody can forecast mortgage
Yeah.
rates. If they go up, what I can do though is I can tell you like exactly what's going to happen to the housing
Yeah.
market.
Right.
If rates go up, and buyers are super sensitive right now. If rates go like right now, they're trading below 7. If rates jump back to 7 or above, you're going to see a real direct slowdown. You'll see inventory build. We'll watch price reductions, and so like I can tell you exactly what's going to happen if rates fall from here, if rates climb from here.
Okay. Now, the one thing that I think is important to point out here from a lender loan originator perspective, okay, so we have a 39% increase in the inventory over last year. That's great news. But what we also have from last year is about a 40% decrease in the number of originators out there in the marketplace. If you go back to 2021 to today. So those numbers are actually better even than what they show, because that inventory is based on, when you compare 2019, for example, at 800,000 plus units to 660,000 units, if you then compare the number of originators, it's probably about the same amount of inventory per originator as you saw in 2019. And I think that's important for lenders and originators to remember and remind themselves of, because what I see is they get so negative so quick. They look at the numbers and it's like, well, we're not at a million. We're not. Well, you're not going to be at a million until things change dramatically. But you're also in a much less competitive marketplace when it comes to the number of lenders and originators out there. Therefore, there's plenty of opportunity for everybody to succeed today. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that, and it's a fascinating way to look at it. There are fewer transactions, there are a lot fewer originators, and one of the things, we're in this moment of low transactions. We've got demand is on the sidelines waiting, but we get a little bit of inventory buildup, we get a little relief on rates, and I believe that will unleash more. Each notch down in rates will unleash more transaction volume. And one of the things I see on that side is folks look at a market and say, well, we just need rates to fall to get us back to normal.
That's
And
a wrong statement.
and yeah, it's like, yeah, exactly. Like, it's like careful what you wish for,
Right,
right?
right.
Because while falling rates and 2021 was amazing and that people were buying everything in sight,
Yep.
and that's great. It was not a healthy market for the participants, and so having rates higher for longer, building that inventory so that there is selection for buyers, so that people aren't priced out and in crazy bidding wars, and first time home buyers can get into homes. Like, all of those things need to happen, and then a little bit of relief on rates, and all of a sudden things feel really good.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great observation. And look, here's the fact of the matter. I mean, I'm working with lenders all over the country, training thousands of originators every single month, and I'm seeing a lot of the loan officers that I'm training and the lenders that I'm working with. I'm seeing loan officers closing 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 units a month. I just interviewed my last interview on Batting 1,000 2 months ago was with an originator who did 60 loans last month, predominantly purchase. So the inventory is there to create plenty of business for everybody, but you got to understand your marketplace, and you got to know whether you're in that tougher market or that better market, and then how do you supplant that. So let's talk for a minute about new construction and building new homes, because I think that's going to also have an impact as this inventory moves. Talk about what you're seeing on that side that's going to help inventory over the next year or two.
Well, it's really interesting that some of those markets like Florida and Texas are those where you build the homes, right?
Yep.
Arizona, and therefore you see inventory. You see inventory rising in those areas where I live in San Francisco, and we don't build any homes in
No,
San Francisco,
you're landlocked.
and so yeah, so that new construction is a factor in the mix. One of the things I like to point out in the data is that a lot of when you look at new home inventory numbers and you see those headlines,
Uh-huh.
there's a lot of uh, homes in there that are just like vacant lots that have power to them,
Yeah.
and they're not really homes. And when we do the Altos numbers, we are only counting the ones that are like these are houses that you can buy now. And so we'll actually pull, future new construction. It's not actually active
Yeah.
inventory until it's a
Yep.
house. And so, there are those metrics in there. And one of the things that, 2023, the home builders had a great year when the existing market was really slow.
Yep.
And one of the reasons they could do that was by buying down rates
Mm-hmm.
for
Right.
borrowers. And it seems to me that advantage for new construction is waning a little
Yep.
bit as the spread
Yep.
compresses between the 10-year and the 30-year mortgage. As that spread compresses, then there's less room for a home builder to borrow and then lend. Yeah, right, and buy down those rates, right? So that gets a like so that advantage starts to wane. It starts to even back out to existing and new construction in that time,
Yep.
in this year. And so, like, I think that's a shift back to a more normalcy there over a little time.
Okay. Good. Let's talk for a minute about kind of shift gears for a minute. Let's talk about this NAR settlement and what you're seeing the impact. I know August 17th is around the corner when all of this is going to become more formalized, and we'll know all of the final details. But I know a lot of things have already been worked out through that, and you're deeply entrenched in that. Talk about that a little bit and what you're seeing is going to be the impact from that, and how you see that playing out in the marketplace over the next 6 months.
Yeah. So, you can see some consumers who are, well, I think the most important observation there is that consumers are ecstatic about
Yep.
that decision, right? They haven't, the neighborhood barbecue where folks talk to me, they haven't really brought it up, but after it was decided, they brought it up a lot.
Yeah.
Like, wow, did you see that? Isn't this amazing? Um, and so you got to imagine that there will continue to be that pull where consumers are, like trying to get a better deal on the buy side.
Right.
Um, and I'm of the view that most consumers are like they are unaware of how much value they get from the buy side agent.
Yep.
And I have the Altos CTO Andy is actually he's British. He's in San Francisco for a long time. They moved back to England to take care of the in-laws, so they buy a house in England. There's no buy side representation. And he bought a house and he's in contract and there's like structural flaw found in one of the walls.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't know what to do. He's like, who do you ask?
Yeah, that's right.
You're like,
Nobody
okay,
decides.
where's my expert?
Yeah.
Like, it's solvable, but he has nobody to turn to.
Yeah.
And he had to go figure that out on his own. And so he's like, well, I found the house on my, like all of the things you think you're doing all the work yourself,
Yep.
but you're really not. So I'm of the view that we will in the US find an equilibrium for buy side agents that probably get discounted more often. There'll be slightly different models on going in there. And I don't spend time on like the legality of
Right.
where people get compensated, things like that. But I do believe that it is part of the experience of the American real estate is that we've had a high fee, high service experience, and when you create a discount broker, the first thing they learn is like, wow, uh, people demand a full fee service
Right.
because they want the full thing. They don't want to just be shown the house. And so I believe that those will happen, and we'll have a little more nuance around the edges of that. I I haven't seen anything in the data of like, oh, that 3% can now go into the price of the house, or I haven't seen anything like that that is changing the market because suddenly the commission numbers are
Right.
changing. Um, and I and I have yet to see, like, we can sometimes see, sellers who are trying to list it with zero commission to the buyer agent or whatever. And I have yet to see measure anything that says that those houses are taking longer to sell or anything like
Yeah.
that. But we'll continue to keep our eye on whether that happens, and especially after August, we'll maybe start getting more data.
Yeah. I think the biggest impact and hit to that is going to be on those buyers agents who are we'll call them the part-time agents that sell a couple of houses a year. They dabble in it. They're not. I don't think they're going to have a chance in this
Yeah.
coming market, because consumers now will want to really see what is your experience and what do you offer and what do you know. And this is a market, particularly because 50 some percent of sales are first-time buyers, um, this year and last year both. When half of your market is first time buyers that don't know a lot, they really do need a lot of guidance. They really do need an advocate on their behalf to help them. We're finding, my wife and I are finding that we're doing that for our kids because they're all at the, buying home ages. And for those who didn't grow up in the mortgage business, like my wife and I did, they need that help. And we're representing that, but that's what realtors are going to play the role of. So I think at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of good things coming out of that. I also think there's a little bit of much ado about nothing. I think it's all going to be worked out in the wash as to how those commissions work. It's just good for consumers because it creates a negotiating opportunity and a chance to get advocates for you that are doing the best job. Really, really like that part of it.
Yeah, and there's a couple of thoughts that happen in there for me. At Altos, we track every zip code in the country, and so an agent or a loan officer, we takes an Altos report, we brand it for them, and so in the process of establishing value
Mm-hmm.
to that consumer, one of the things that is of such a powerful communication about value is like, here's what the market's doing. Like, I'm the market expert. And
Yeah.
so now you say, oh, Dale, I'm thinking about buying a house in, sometime soon. And you go, let me make sure you get my market report. It comes out every Monday. I want to make sure my clients are the best informed that they can
Yeah.
be. So when you're watching it, I want you to look at this every Monday. I'll show you the parts of, I want you to look at this one number. If this one's going up, we're going to watch our inventory, and we're going to see, is your selection improving or is it falling? And so having that market data in their inbox every
Huge.
Monday is super
Huge.
powerful,
Yep. Absolutely.
super powerful. And for loan officers and, people in the mortgage business, putting it in the inboxes of all those
Oh,
agents is
you're going to
powerful.
win great partnerships doing that. No question about it.
Great
Yeah.
partnership.
Yep. So let's talk about you. You mentioned earlier home prices and what they're going to do, and we don't look like we're headed to a catastrophic 2007, 8, 9, and 10 all over again
Yeah.
with a major shift. We have been in the longest run that I've seen in 41 years I've been in this business of property value increases. We're at what, 14 years, I believe now, that we've seen values go nowhere but up, which is unbelievable. So we know the old saying, what goes up must come down. But you're the expert on this. You track this. Talk to us about what you foresee happening with prices. I know I just read a report that listing prices now are, we're seeing 36% of inventory that's selling at or below the listing price, which is higher than we saw a year ago, and 2 years ago it was 32%. So that's going to obviously be a lag that's going to lead to property values going down a little bit. What do you see happening in the future with that?
So, yeah, so as of right now, a few different ways to look at prices. But at Altos, we're tracking every home for sale in the country. And if you look at the ask prices of the country, they are $450,000 a median price of single family homes in the U.S.
Okay.
You walk into the market right now, that's the median of what you can buy in the country right now. It is unchanged from a year ago.
Wow.
It's actually unchanged from 2 years ago. And then so basically flat on home prices for 2 years.
Okay.
Uh, and but we can also look at things like the median price of the newly listed cohort each week. And this one's really cool because this is like the economists call it the wisdom of the crowds. The crowds are the listing agents and the sellers who at their local market, they know how many people were at the open house down the street. They know if there was a bidding war, they know if there was not. And now they know, like, they use all that information to price their house when they list the next one.
Right.
They do a little discount or they do a little premium. And so we can watch this price of the new listing turn up or down before, like, months before the sales price, because now you like there's no demand, they're going to discount this one a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
discount it a little bit, and then and then now it's on the market. Now those get offers. Now the sales price is, so houses gets listed now. It's on the market in August. It doesn't get an offer, does a price cut in September. It gets an offer in October. It closes in November. Like, I can tell you right now what's going to happen there because we can see where that is getting priced. So there's all these leading indicators in the prices there. If we look at the price of the homes that are going into contract now, so these are not yet sold, but they took offers this week, and they start the contract process, so 30 or 45 days till they close. So they'll close mostly in August or September. These are 3% more expensive than a year ago.
Hmm.
So up a little bit in prices. And if you look at the headline prices like NAR or Case-Shiller, or those are still reporting like 5% home price appreciation over last year. Those are lagging a little bit. And so we can see those headlines are compressing from like 5 to probably 3. And my view is that we'll finish the year in a 0 to 3% home price appreciation range.
Okay.
So up just a little, basically flat though, but maybe up just a little bit. Last year we ended up 5%. Home prices appreciated 5% last year. And so it looks less than that. But there's no signal in the data of a crash. And I think this is important because a lot of the people who are sitting on the sidelines are like, oh, economy sucks, people are hurting. I'm just going to wait until prices crash. Then I'm going to swoop in for the great deal.
Yeah. You're going to wait a long time.
And like, maybe, like, how long are you going to wait? Maybe that happens. Like, it could happen. But what I can tell you is there's no signal anywhere in the data of that happening. We would see it in places like, so we track price reductions around the country. Every home that takes a price cut. And as a rule of thumb, about a third take a price cut before they sell.
Yeah.
So sometimes that's strategic. Sometimes it's accidental. It's a seller who's like fishing for the, whatever. But about a third take a price cut. So when the market's hot, some of those fishing sellers get their offer and they don't have to do a price cut.
Right.
And so a third or 35% is normal. Then in a hot market, it's maybe 25% that actually are taking price cuts. Then in like the spring of 21 and 22, it's like 15%, only 15% of the homes needed to take a price cut. When 35 thought they were overpriced, like, because we were buying everything in sight.
Mm-hmm.
And so on the other side, when the market cools, 35 goes to 36, 38%, 40. And so right now, 38.6% of the homes on the market have taken a price cut from the original list price. So that is slower demand than normal, right? It is cool. It is climbing each week as it does this time of year, late in the summer. If you haven't sold yet, you start doing a little more discount. School starts. Then by the holidays, it peaks. Then you get fresh inventory in January, and that price reduction cycle falls again.
Mm-hmm.
So price reductions are increasing each week now. They're not increasing super steeply. So in 22, when the brakes were really on, we were like 150 basis points a week from like, 33% to 34.5% to 36% price cuts, like a lot of price cuts happening. And right now it's 30 basis points a week is the change.
Okay.
So that shows us that shows us price reductions are elevated. There's not like a lot of bidding wars going on. There's that therefore the next ones that are getting priced will be take a slight discount. We'll have all of those mix, but there's nothing like in 22, the fall of 22 when price cuts were accelerating. The peak of price cuts was 43% of the market had price cuts in November. And then the spring of last year, we had year over year home price declines. So the headlines, the sales numbers were showing. So that's like a 6 month lead time, 4 to 6 month lead time
Okay.
from the price cuts to the sales.
Got it.
In places like Phoenix in that year, 22, so almost 2 years ago now, 62% of the homes on the market in Phoenix had taken a price cut.
Yep.
And so prices dropped in Phoenix the following year.
Yep.
But they found a floor, and then we watched because investors came in and said, "Wow, my cap rate's finally got. I'm going to buy there."
Right.
And so they found a floor there, and that kept the floor in prices in Phoenix. Price reductions dropped back down, so price reductions in Phoenix are now like 50%. So it shows slow, not as bad as it was 2 years ago. So you can see these in the market. So what it tells us is, again, it's like it reinforces my hypothesis that the year will see 0 to 3% home price appreciation. If demand stops, let's say rates jump to 7.5, you'll see if I'm shopping at 6.75 and now I see 7.5, I don't make that offer
Right.
on the weekend. On Monday, that seller didn't get any offers. They do their price cut, stimulate demand.
Right.
And so we would see if rates jump, we would see price reductions kick in. Then we would start to have negative sales price forecasts. So
Great data.
via price reductions right now, via inventory. So inventory's up, but it's not really a lot. Even in, Sarasota, it's not a lot.
Right.
It's more, and it's something to keep our eye on. So if we see that going, then those would turn, bearish and then imply home prices falling in the future. So we have a visibility in the next year.
Yeah.
Beyond the next year, there's all kinds of macro things you don't have any idea about. There's, wars and pandemics,
Absolutely.
but you have no idea what happens
Yeah.
further a year out. But one of the things that people are talking about, and so your audience might have, I'm sure, experiences this, is like they think the economy is going to tank. When the economy does tank, or maybe they think it's already in the tank, but they then they assume that there's going to be foreclosures. There's going to be people who can't make their mortgage. And so we'll get some distressed inventory finally. And again, that may happen. Everybody's got a job now. As of right now, the distressed rate is ultra low and falling. So at some point, unemployment spikes way up. If after such time that unemployment spikes way up, it's another year before we see distressed inventory.
Okay. And the impact, any kind of pricing, right?
And any kind of pricing. Well, yeah, the pricing then lags after that,
right?
So it would be at the earliest, we're talking late 2025 before we started to see some distressed inventory.
So 2026 would be the potential. And
yeah,
do you believe, because this is what I believe from just 40 years of doing this and watching the markets, and this is, again, is just a hypothesis, but I think we're going to see some regional areas are going to have some struggles, some big struggles, and see some pretty sizable decreases in property values over the next 2 to 5 years. Would you agree with that?
I think that's certainly possible. And you can see it, in Austin. Like if I bought a house in July of 2022 in Austin, like I might be underwater.
Yeah.
And it could be several years before we get above water there. There are and Western Florida, Southwest Florida in particular, this year has led the country as being the slowest markets. And we have things going on there in both in Texas and in Florida, for example, are like there's taxes and insurance cost changes.
Oh,
So if I bought a house, yeah, huge, right? If I bought a house in Naples in 2019, I have a 2% mortgage on it. I have a 2% mortgage on it, and that's great. But my insurance might have gone from $500 a month to $1,500 a month in that time.
yep,
And now, if it's my second home and I only use it 3 weeks a year, like maybe it doesn't pencil out so much anymore.
yep,
So now that comes back on the market.
yep.
And so those costs are indeed driving a lot of those local market changes,
Yeah.
and seem like unlikely to change rapidly. So I do believe that there's obviously local markets where that change is
Yep.
happening, um, and but even in like Austin, Texas, there's no signal of crash.
Right. It's not a 2007, 8, 9 kind of thing because
It's not
that was a total
2008.
different set of circumstances that created that. That is nothing like what we're going through today. So,
Yeah, and if you look at the mortgage stats, like we can look at LTV, and I wrote an article about this recently that in 2014, nationally LTV 70%. Right now, LTV 48%.
isn't it like
Like
305,000? I saw CoreLogic put something out that said 305,000 was the average or the median gross equity
equity.
available in the United States.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah, it's
It's crazy.
huge. So
Biggest deal.
even when I lose my job and I'm out of work, I am like worried about being able to pay the mortgage. The fascinating thing is in 2008, that mortgage was the first thing I get rid of. Now, like I'm like, I've got this house, I've got a 2% mortgage. I am like, that's the thing I want to keep
Right.
forever. So I'm doing everything to hold on to that house because I'm not
Great
like,
point.
even if I want to sell, take that equity, now I got to rent, and my rent is going to be a lot more
Yeah. Yeah.
expensive.
That's right.
So it is. It's really like we're in a situation now where on the other side, the bearish one, of course, is the DTI number.
Right.
So DTI right now is high for new loans, as high as it's ever been.
Right.
The last time it was as high was 2006, but in 2006 it was high because we were doing loans to lower income
Right.
people. So the income was falling in the DTI equation. Now, of course, the price is higher, and really the rates are
Right.
higher. So DTI is super high right now, and so that, of course, is like what that tells us is that if rates go up for the rest of the year, you can see exactly why demand goes down.
Yep.
But if rates fall, that DTI number comes back down, and it makes falls off its record level. So that is that like we can see exactly what's going on in those mortgage markets, and you can see um, why it'll take multiple years of people buying at higher rates. Now those people they don't have that great deal, so they're more likely to resell. So that puts more resale inventory back in. It allows sometime in the future that maybe there will be distressed inventory. But with the homeowners now, unless you bought in Austin in June of 22, you've got a ton of equity,
Yep.
you've got the best loan ever, you've got like all of the things that and so
Yep.
for people who are waiting on the sidelines for a massive crash, like even in Austin, it's hard to see how that happens,
Yep.
barring some kind of other, there's all kinds of macro variables that we don't really have visibility into, beyond a year.
So what is that DTI number right now?
I should know it off the top of my head. It's like 40%. Like it's really
It's
high.
high. Yeah. And
And
all the more reason with all this equity that homeowners should consider taking some of that equity, paying off consumer debt to bring that DTI down because that DTI is inclusive of that. So, yeah,
yeah,
it's important.
and that's just for home buyers, right? For home owners, it's the opposite. It's the total opposite. It's the best deal ever. I got the lowest payments ever,
Yep,
and so it's a real,
real interesting.
have and have not scenario.
Well, Mike, this was fascinating information. You are just a walking book of knowledge. I appreciate you so much. Uh, I know that you guys do a Monday market update on YouTube where you have a video with the latest national data. Everybody should be checking into that. They certainly should be utilizing your resources of your blogs and data information for themselves to be knowledgeable on the market, and also for their realtors, like we talked about earlier, to build those, enhance those relationships. How do people get a hold of you? What else should they be knowing? What should they be coming to you for? Help us understand that.
Yeah. So Altos Research, altosresearch.com. And if you want to like look at local market and talk about how should I be talking about the local market, like book a free consult with our team.
Great.
We'll talk about the data. We'll show you how to use it. We have an ebook that's like how to use market data in your business,
Awesome.
and yeah, talk about the data. Like go grab the free ebook. On the YouTube channel, yeah, I do every Monday. Take about 15 minutes. Look at the data. Look at the inventory and prices, and all of the leading indicators. Um, and it's designed. In YouTube, there's all kinds of crazy noise, and the world's on fire. I'm trying like we opened our story with like, what is the data telling me?
Right.
And that's where I try to be with that. So Altos Research on YouTube, and you can go there and get that each week and connect with us. But go to the Altos website and book a free consult with our team. And we do stuff with brokers, and we do stuff with lenders, and like for the whole team or individuals. So all the way through the industry.
Well, Mike, we really appreciate you being here today. I know you're traveling on business. I know you got a crazy schedule. we both have that. I really appreciate you being here. You have helped the audience get a ton of information. Thank you so much for showing up today and just enlightening us on what's happening out there. Really appreciate it.
Dale, my pleasure.
All right, guys. Well, that wraps up another Batting 1,000, where we talk with the heavy hitters in the mortgage industry. Awesome conversation today with Mike Simonsen. So glad to have him here. Hope you guys got a ton out of this. I know you did. And we'll see you on the next Batting 1,000. Thanks, everybody. God bless.